Well, I'm sorry I can't be there in person today. I'm Anna Lael. I'm the district manager with the Kittitas County Conservation District. And I have one last minute project that I have sort of cobbled together. So I appreciate Alex and Shane's helpfulness with this and whatever grace you guys can give me for doing this last minute. I'm gonna go ahead and shut off my video here.
Can you turn that off?
I don't think I can. Anna, if you could speak a little louder. I've got the volume up, but we've got some folks that can't hear very well.
Okay.
That came out right.
Turn your bells on. Yeah, invite us all to your 30th birthday.
Can't hear you very well at the moment.
Hey, is this better?
Is that better? Oh, that is better.
Okay. Okay, excuse me. So this project is on a reach of the Yakima River that is very familiar to everyone. And it's not a very interesting name, I don't think, for it, but I'm calling it Yakima River Mile 153 side channel implementation. Let me see if I can get my, oh, there we go. Back. There we go. Okay. I have two screens here and it has it on both of them on my end, so I'm confusing myself. So this project was actually developed by Trout Unlimited under a previous surfboard grant, project 15-1147, which was completed in 2018. So Trout Unlimited led this project. They brought on Herrera Environmental Consultants to do the design, and Herrera used watershed science and engineering, who again is familiar to folks, to do the assessment and then design work. And before I get into it, just construction was not pursued. I don't necessarily know all of the ins and outs of why it was not pursued, whether it was a funding issue or maybe not complete agreement with the landowner on what everyone wanted to see implemented there. So at this project site, there was flood damage in the December 2025 and then again in February flood events. And so I'm just going to jump down here to the maps so that we can just zoom right in on where we're talking about. So this is directly south of Ellensburg on the Yakima River. In this reach, again, of the river that you all are, I'm sure many of you are very familiar with, basically from the Umtanum Road Bridge here all the way to the mouth of the Yakima Canyon. So there was a presentation, I think the first project of the day was in this reach as well. The Shockey property is here, so all of the Bureau of Reclamation work, all the Kittitas County properties that were acquired on this side of the river. So this project is on the west side of the river at the very upper levee. That's kind of part of that complex of levees all through there, the Jensen levee. Mm-hmm. And then this is just another kind of zoom in on it. So I-90 and Mattoon Lake, if you're familiar with that, driving through the area, it's directly over here. So the project.
We have a request. Can we put it in presentation mode? So we can
it's
see
not
more
in presentation mode. Okay, so that's the part that's confusing here. Hang on just one second.
If you go to view, it probably has a swap monitors option. Or the slideshow. Sorry, I can't remember which it is.
The slideshow.
Slideshow problem.
Yep, sorry, slideshow swap monitors.
Slideshow. Yeah, why does it do that?
It's used
monitor.
I
think it's this one. Let me try again. Did that work?
That looks right.
Yay, thanks for that. Thank you for the IT help. Okay. Yeah, so this is a Google Earth image that just kind of gives us a little bit of a different angle. But the Jensen levee is located right here. And the subject property is essentially within this oval. So this is Umtanum Road here, and then River Bottom Road runs right along here. And this is the upper end of the Shockey property that was acquired by the Bureau of Reclamation a few years ago, more than a few years ago. And so I do want to give complete and total credit to Trout Unlimited. I took much of this from their previous presentations and the reports and work products that they completed as part of that previous project. And so that's one of the things that made it at least somewhat possible for me to do this last minute, is there was so much of the work already done. So big, enormous thank you to Justin and the Trout Unlimited folks for all of this information. So the main stem of the Yakima River in this reach has, of course, lots of activity in it, lots of species in it, present during different times of the year. Yeah, I don't want to go through things that I know you guys all know. So if I'm glossing over things too much, please stop me.
I would
There
assume
is
that
a
we
full.
know everything, actually. We've got some new folks on the committee, so feel free to
Okay.
go into the detail.
Okay, so there is the full design report that was completed by Herrera. I believe I uploaded into Prism with my application, and so it's a really good read for me anyway. Trying to put a project together, even though it is a bit dated. It was completed in 2018, and so that's something that we can talk about a little bit more. So this project site, Trout Unlimited worked with this landowner specifically because they are in this important reach of the Yakima River, where there is a lot of fish use and needs for improved habitat. This particular side of the river, unlike the east side of the river that the county was talking about and that the Bureau has worked on and all that, that has now almost entirely been secured and is public land, either owned by the Bureau of Reclamation or owned by the county, almost in this entire reach. This west side of the river, where this project is almost entirely private lands, and so still in agricultural operations. And so Trout Unlimited, I think, picked up this project and started working with this landowner. And I think that he might have actually reached out to Trout Unlimited to start this because of his interest in, he had purchased this property and then his interest in improving the property. So in Trout Unlimited's, that previous project, they came in and looked at there are levees on this project. So there's the Jensen levee, and then there's a lower levee that I don't believe it has a name, but it was obviously part of the series of levees that were along the Yakima River in this reach that are historic. There are some spring channels on this property that looked like they would be available for habitat if they had some improvements. They had been degraded by just land use activities and irrigation on the project site. And then there was, like there is on the other side of the river, although a much smaller version of it, a gravel pit pond that is an issue on this particular piece of property as well. So what Trout Unlimited was looking at doing with this project and with Herrera was improving river processes, enhancing fish habitat, and addressing some of that past land use damage that had been done, and supporting agriculture in the Kittitas Valley. So these are just a couple of pictures. The one on the left-hand side, I believe, is the Jensen levee. And then, or maybe I have them backwards. There are a couple of folks in the room who know, feel free to jump in here. Maybe the one on the right is the Jensen levee, because it's got a pretty good bite out of it. It did then, beginning to degrade at that location.
Levee.
I think they are too. They're both, okay, great. Yeah, so the levee at the upstream end, and one of the landowners' concerns, even when this project was done, not just because of the flood events that just happened, where that this levee was degrading, and he does have an agricultural field or quite a bit of acreage behind it that he'd like to be able to protect for agricultural viability. These are a couple of the spring channels that were identified on the property. Again, that could be enhanced to provide additional habitat. And then there were some passage barriers associated with those spring channels that were identified as well in the early parts of the project. So as the design development occurred over the course of the 3 years of this project, Justin and Trout Unlimited put together a technical advisory group who were reviewing the design report and the assessment information that came in, and then providing comments. And in that design report, there is a section at the back that is a list of all of the comments received from these different agencies, if they provided a comment, and then the response to it in the plan. So it's a good place to go look if you have questions, because I'm sure that whatever questions you have, they probably had at the same time. So what was produced out of that was that design report, and also a full stamped set of plans and bid documents to move ahead with construction. So you can see the stamp here is Mark Eubanks with Herrera. And I have been in touch with him in the last few days. We've exchanged some phone calls and emails, just revisiting this project and talking about what would be needed if we were going to try to move it ahead. So just I just pulled some of the plan sheets just to kind of show. So there's basically 2 areas that they have plan sheets for. This is the Jensen levee up here. You can see the ag field that, and all the way down here, that the landowner is looking to want to protect. And then this area down here, excuse me, is where the spring channels, can I see the pond? It isn't very big in this vicinity in here. So we can just do a couple of the detail sheets. I'm talking way over my head if I'm trying to explain plans that were done by licensed engineer. So again, there I have uploaded this. Versions of this are in Prism with our application, so you should be able to review these if you really want to get down into the weeds. So the intent up here, so this is the length of the levee. It is intended that a side channel would be constructed here. This is that long side channel that would then go back to the river in the where that levee is failing, and then a flood fence would be constructed here. So that would not necessarily keep water out of the agricultural field there. The intent of that flood fence would be to keep debris off of the field while allowing some water in that area. Yeah, and just a little closer version of what that would look like. Again, constructing the side channel here. The flood fence, I think their intent was to do what we've seen done mostly on west side rivers is large cottonwood bowls that are put in to make essentially kind of a picket fence sort of scenario that would capture any debris that would be coming in and keep it off the agricultural field. And then this is the lower end. Yeah, so the pond, I believe, is here. Some of these kind of spring brook sort of side channel locations there. And then the piece for me that, you know, I really start looking at is the funding for it. Each of these categories that are listed out in those plans and specs that again are included in Prism with our application. This cost estimate right here, I don't think I've uploaded it yet, but I will in the next day or so. So Mark Eubanks, after talking to him, I initially put in what I thought might be a cost increase from the 2018 cost estimate that they put together. And so he has reviewed that and sent this over so that we have as up to date as we can have if the project were to be constructed as it is designed out of that project from 2018. So here's the big here's the take home of this. So he added in trying to bring it up to 2027 costs, and also a contingency, which is sort of what we talked about. I did a 20% cost increase from that original cost, and that's what I put into Prism to begin with, and he's bumped it to 25. So now construction cost is at 605,000. In my cost estimate form, that is the form that's required for the grant, I have construction in as a single line item at 605,000 now, because we have this really detailed cost estimate that will also be attached. Yeah, so that 605,000 is right there. I also included costs for permits for cultural resources, as we should, costs for planting, because those planting costs were not included in that original cost estimate. The planting was intended to be done, I guess, as a separate contract, so that is included in here. And I have just under $60,000 in for final design, and that amount is there specifically so that we can have the engineers re-engage and go through the project site, look at changing or changed conditions from 2018, and make any determinations that need to be made about whether modifications need to happen to those plans. I do not have any match listed in here at this moment. I think this project is a really good fit with the voluntary stewardship program, and it is possible that we could get capital funds through VSP, but there's no solicitation open for that until probably a year from now. So I would need to kind of chat those folks up a little bit and see if my understanding of this being a great project for VSP is their understanding, and if I take the risk of trying to throw in their VSP capital funding as match for the project. Okay, so this project, I have obviously talked with the landowner. He reached out to Jen at WDFW in kind of the throes of the February high water event, trying to just make sure he has livestock in there, just make sure he was protected, but also looking for a more long-term solution for the property, which is what this project would be. And so he and I are going to sit down on this Thursday, go through the project design and ensure that what's in there is what he wants and what he's willing to do. So I have that piece that I need to check off because it may be that he doesn't want to do everything that's in here. And so I obviously need to know that so I could make adjustments if I needed to. And then the other piece is, have conditions changed significantly enough on the ground from these flood events or other flood events since 2018 that design work needs to be relooked at? Does more additional modeling work need to be done? Just what exactly do we need to do? So the other thing that's happening at the same time that I'm putting this application in is that on the upper end of the Jensen levee is the Fogarty Ditch headgate. And Fogarty Ditch was made into essentially a functional side channel of the river when the Bureau of Reclamation installed their fish screen much further down the ditch. And that was done about 20 years ago, give or take a little bit. And so when that happened, Fish and Wildlife, through the screen shop, I believe they either did the installation and we provided the funding through our Yakima Tributary Access and Habitat Program, or it was a joint effort, but it was a long time ago, so I can't remember exactly. A small headgate was installed in the headgate structure that has their large main irrigation headgate. And that small, I think 10-inch headgate was intended to be left open all year round so that Fogarty Ditch could operate as essentially a side channel of the river. And in the flood events, the same as the lower end of this levee, that headgate structure was compromised. And so we requested assistance from the Natural Resources Conservation Service. They have an emergency watershed protection program. And we had landowners on the Teanaway and then on the Yakima River and then this Fogarty Ditch project site who were damaged, and there was what NRCS determined to be an imminent threat to life or property. So at this location, that determination was made because that headgate irrigates 825 acres. And if they are not able to get their irrigation water, obviously there's a pretty significant impact to those folks. So long story short, we are working on the upper end of that levee right now. NRCS awarded EWP funds. We have engaged Watershed Science and Engineering to do some modeling work as we need to be able to get the permits to ensure that that headgate, both the larger headgate for the irrigation diversion and the small one for providing year-round flow, that structure is reinstalled and protected as best we can do it. So we're already going to be in there looking at it, and maybe we'll get a better idea of how much conditions have changed from those, that work that was done up to 2018. So we're working on that piece of it. That will hopefully give us some idea of change, at least in the area. And then I will be looking for more immediate funding because we don't want to wait for this grant if it gets funded. We don't want to wait that long to start working on things. So looking for funding to at least look at the engineering piece of it and see what we need to do. And then, like I said, looking for VSP money maybe for construction that would help us with that. And one of the other things that we'd like to do fairly quickly, if we can, is reconvene that technical work group and see if we can kind of refresh everyone's memories about what this project was, the comments at the time, any concerns that anyone had, and making sure that we're addressing all of those as we try to move this project forward. So that's essentially what I have for a presentation. And again, thank you. I really appreciate the patience and letting me kind of do this really last minute. And anything in particular that anyone has questions or comments about now that I can ask the landowner and the engineers in the next week or 10 days, I would love to hear that. Also, we're trying to schedule it so that the landowner can actually be on site for the site visit. And I'm going to work on trying to get the engineer there as well, so that we can kind of have everybody together, at least for the site visit. And the folks who can answer questions, especially the technical ones, would be there and available.
That would be great. I see we have comments from Elizabeth from a few minutes ago. I'll read them. Need to put the contingency into each line item as it isn't an eligible construction cost line item for RCO. So just to increase each line item by that % contingency.
Okay.
And then she asked, might this be able to be adjusted to increase cost to 1 million, perhaps by adding riparian planting so that it could compete for targeted investments? Says, not sure how it would compete, but the position of this site among the other restoration work may be a way to raise importance, although maybe it is too soon.
That sounds like a good idea. I think once I talk to the landowner and see where we are with this, and circle back around with the engineers as well. I mean, our cost estimate might not be great. Landowner may be willing to do more than he was previously. I think he right now has the motivation to do a project and to do it robustly. So yeah, I would be happy to try to work on that and see if that's an option.
Sounds good.
So does it need to be $1 million in construction money or just $1 million total?
Elizabeth?
It needs to be at least $1 million total surfboard ask. It also needs to have completed preliminary designs that are what you're going, so you need to be able to answer the question of, are we going with the original designs or do we have to change them? And it is a speculative funding source that wouldn't be available if it comes in until July of 2027 at the very earliest.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll have to talk about that. But it would be, seems like a stretch. So a moment ago, Anna, you asked the group for feedback in particular. Would you like to repeat what you asked for? Or could you?
Do I remember what I asked for? I think just,
Okay.
especially, yeah, for those folks who participated in that technical advisory group at the time, if there were anything that is trigger, I know it was a long time ago and I don't remember everything I did in 2018 for sure. But if there's anything that is sort of popped up to folks who know this project and know this site and maybe know the landowner as questions, I already have kind of a short list of them for our conversation on Thursday, but happy to take any others.
Yeah, Anna, this is Katie with US Fish, and we had money in this project for construction years ago. But the landowner, I believe, wanted shade for his cows and wanted to move the side channel out of the shade so the cows didn't get wet. Or something of the sort. So just, I'm curious, what his intent is with this project, if it's just to get public funding to repair the levee, is my concern. So I'm curious, and things can change in 8 years as well.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Alex, good.
No, I was gonna let. Yeah, the tweak discussions, there were a lot of discussions about grazing. It wasn't quite as extreme as you put it, but there was a lot of different positions on what level of grazing would be allowable in different parts of the project site. And at that time, that never really came to a head. The other discussion, and Jen and Sean, and I know you were both engaged as well, was about the levee and just that, could you set it back or pull it back? How did it go? And I can't quite remember whether there was twig concurrence on the final design or if that was still in. It's one of these projects that just sort of faded away without a very clear, this is exactly why it didn't happen. I think it didn't rank, it either didn't rank or wasn't ranking as well as people would. It's sort of faded away. I think there's definitely, my memory of it is that there was a lot of habitat opportunity, especially on the lower half of the property, and a robust discussion about what level of give and take between landowner objectives for the ag field and setback grazing. And I think if Mark is willing to have open discussions about that, it'd be, yeah. Is that consistent, Jen, with your memory, or Sean?
Yeah, so, you know, another piece of this is, I think it was the 2009 event where we walked away from defending the Jensen levy, which was an important piece of the puzzle. And Anna, you already touched on it in my early conversations during the flooding. When we talked about this, you know, I mentioned that all the details were fuzzy, but that the grazing management within the restored area was a point of contention or question that he's on the property more now than he was then. And so the fact that he's going to be available to directly answer questions and hear concerns, I think is a really changed element from where we were before, and potential opportunity.
And did you have anything to add to what Alex and Jen just said?
I don't think so.
I was gonna say, Sean, I believe, was on this tweak too, and I remember being, am I right?
He's not here.
Oh, he's not.
Yeah. So other Sean?
So. Seems like the ask here should be stepped back to revisiting design. Not construction. Aren't we quite a ways ahead of the sports industry?
Did you hear that, Anna?
Yeah, I don't know how far ahead we are. I mean, I don't know how out of
That's my
sequence we
point.
are.
Find out before we start trying to commit money to construction and stuff. Why don't we get a proposal to go look at that, figure out where we're at and where we think we should be. Right, and we can fund that.
I recall your timeline for reviewing the final designs made by Trout Unlimited. Was only a handful of months. I took that to mean that you have some level of confidence that those designs can be assessed pretty quickly. What do you think, Anna? Was that accurate?
I do, but I might be overconfident. So I mean, I'm hoping that in the next, say, 10 days, in the conversations with the landowner and then kind of a look at things with the engineers, at least initially, that we could get a better sense of where we feel like we are with those designs.
So between now and June.
Well, I see a fork in the road. And one version is these get dusted off. You're able to talk to Mark, you're able to convene a twig, and one fork is everyone says, these designs are pretty good and within the level of adjustment that we normally would do in the preliminary design, we can charge ahead. And in that case, yeah, a final June application with some cleaned up budget numbers works well. If the answer is the twig and Mark and everyone say, why the heck did we say we do it this way? And there's some better options, or enough has changed in the whole reach that we need new hydraulic models. Then I think your comment that, yeah, this sounds more like a next phase design might be more applicable, but I don't think we've crossed that fork yet. Is that fair, Anna?
Yeah, I think it is.
But it's a real question.
How do we get to the funding part until we cross that?
And that's where it's on Anna and the landowner to make a decision on that fork prior to the June final submission, and you will evaluate whatever is submitted in June, not what you're seeing today.
Yeah, work yet to be done. But very good question.
Yeah, the other thing that I do remember being part of this discussion, and Jen, you may remember more than I, was this was pre-implementation of the Shaki project, and there was a lot of very conservative about any form of change from the Bureau. Now that they've actually done the Shaki project across the river and have a much better sense of what does or doesn't expose them to flood or erosion risk, I don't know if that would change some of the discussion about what was allowable.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And you.
I think that the corner, just at the end of the Jensen levee is actually Bureau property as well. So you're in it. Welcome.
That's
Or
good.
I'll talk to the engineers who designed that.
They'd be helpful.
And some of the
Like,
issues were
Tiffany's been
about
engaged in the whole.
past and or proposed barbs, and just looking at the recent flood, Jen, are there any barbs left? Because it used to be a bunch of barbs incorporated into the levee, and the question is, what would that do with pointing water at the Bureau?
There,
Yeah, and those are gone, so.
but there could be some new ones associated with the Fogarty
good.
project.
Oh,
Katie?
Curious as to why the landowner didn't reconnect with TU and went with the conservation district.
Anna?
Not sure. He reached out to me after he talked to Jen, so I don't know if maybe Jen, did you send him my way?
mentioned that you were working on the Fogarty project and had a bag of cash, so that might have been.
I will also say whether, without putting on it, this was one of those where there was an awkward triangle where everything was going through a game of telephone in multiple ways. And wherever the sponsorship is, hearing that the landowner is ready to sit down and really talk through these issues, and that Anna is welcoming both landowner and Twig and others to have with it is possible, because part of it was, I think there was some talking by in the design phase that got challenging.
I don't understand.
Lots of speculations were made about by the people reviewing the project about the landowner interests and the vice versa, I think landowner about, and I'm not sure those communications were. Yeah, the big message is put it all on the table. What level of compromise are we all excited about? We needed to happen. Is that fair?
Questions? Anna, is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to?
I don't think so.
Okay. Anything that folks specifically would like to see when we go to tour this project?
I guess designs in hand as they were in 2018 and walk the property with that and see.
Remind me, Anna, have you uploaded those to Prism yet?
I think I uploaded the design report, which is a little bit longer. Maybe I'll upload the designs as a separate document.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Please.
Okay.
So are you saying Katie as a handout? Okay.
Or at least one.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll coordinate with you. It might make the most sense for me to print that and provide it.
And it's not a case of the straight designs. It'd be good to look at them and think about a schematic, because it is actually a complicated project, and we can look at the old designs and see, but and it's one we'll need to give a lot of time to, because looking at the levee on the upper half of the property and then getting down and understanding the side channels and the connection to all the irrigation tailwater and whatnot, and the passive barriers at the bottom end, you'll spend a bit of time there. Okay.
Thank you, Katie, for that. Anybody else? Elizabeth asked, would it be helpful to understand how this relates to the Shockey project? Anyone who knows the Shockey project want to put in on that?
Anybody know the history on that?
Anybody who doesn't know the
Do we
Shockey
want to
project?
project? The easiest thing would be to project a recent aerial.
And to check in with Timothy about the modeling.
Yeah. Oh, I bet I just meant it right now. If you want, if you
It's
could
gonna be real soon.
call me, you can zoom in there. Or
We only have 2 minutes. I don't know about that.
The short version is Shockey is the old feedlot outside Ellensburg that was acquired years ago by Bureau of Reclamation. They, for 15 years, worked on designs for different iterations of floodplain restoration. That was implemented now with COVID. Was it 2020? So that's about 3-4 years ago. They built a fairly heavily engineered side channel entrance, levee setbacks. There's some great habitat features out there. So the big work that they were sort of holding this property for is now done. And yeah, it'd be great to talk some more, whether here or in a reconvened twig, about whether and how that changes the concerns about this levee on the other side. This is right across the river from the upper end of the intake of that Shockey side channels.
The portion of levee that remains.
Yep.
To protect the NIP.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, Elizabeth says maybe an aerial of the site visit. Good things to be thinking about as we prepare. Everybody feel good to wrap this one up? All right, I think we've got all our questions in, Anna. Thank you.
Great, thank you.